And I just find it, and Kez has said, Lee, I'm telling you now, he wasn't drunk. If he was, why would we have let him drive? Why on earth would you do that? And Trevor, he said, I can't remember, but I can tell you now, I know if he'd been drinking, there's no way we would have let him drive. Why on earth would you do that? And so the toxicology report comes back and it's examined, and there's books written about this, Sean, right? But the interesting thing is when they went into Henry Paul's flat to search it, initially these couple of coppers go in, and they find, I think it's half a bottle of like a liqueur and a bottle of champagne type stuff. That's it. And they take it, they recover it, and they recover other things from this one bedroom flat, right? About 3 days later, they go back and search it again. They find enough booze in there to stock a small bar. It was what the paparazzi was doing to her boys that concerned her, not her. Yeah, she was upset about it, but as a mother, she was upset about this. And she told me she'd been to the Prime Minister then and asked him to pass this bill that was going through to make more laws on the paps and what they can do. And he told her he wouldn't do it. She told me this, and I have no opinions in politics. I'm not a political guy. But it was Tony Blair, and she said, I asked him, and he said to me, no, if I get the paps off you, they'll come after my government. You're going to have to live with it for a bit. And she said, yeah, it was shocking. I felt really, really angry when she told me that. It affected me quite a lot. And she said, I won't tell you the exact words she said, but what she said was, I refused to cry in front of him. I waited until I got out to my car to start crying. But I bumped into her on the ship, on the front of the ship, with massive glass windows, and I was looking for something, and she turned around. She's obviously been crying. She was really upset, and she said, "Have you heard about my friend Versace?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." I said, "It's really awful. It's horrible." And she said, "What things happened?" And I just said, "It just looks like it's it's been a hit, and nobody knows. It's breaking news and all the rest of it." She was crying, and she said to me, "Lee, do you think they will do that to me?" And the way she said it and the context she said it in, I knew it was aimed at either the royal family or the government. And at that moment, in somebody's moment of need and grief and desperation, that was how she felt. And I was like, whoa, this is one, I've got to get out of here, because she came very close to me. She just wanted a hug, and I wanted to hug her. When somebody's so upset, but imagine if the paparazzi would have caught that decision. And it was, I think it was after I got into a bit of a lot of a fight one night, and I went home. Your face is swollen up and all the rest of it, and my parents were going crazy, and I looked in the mirror and I thought, what are you doing? And I think it was that moment then that I kind of realised I couldn't behave like this if I wanted to be a top sportsman. It just doesn't go together. And also with the karate at that time, well, I mean, even now, if you can't control yourself outside the dojo, because you're representing the school, aren't you, and the community and the country as well. I fought internationally. So I think at that young age of 18, 19, I kind of thought, right, I've got a choice here. I can go that way, and I was really good at it. But I probably end up in strange ways, prison like a lot of my friends, or I can go that way, and I can still fight because I enjoyed fighting. It's the chemicals that are released into your body that you become addicted to it. Like you'd be addicted to anything, cocaine, drugs, alcohol, whatever. You get the same rush. You get the same rush from fighting and being in that community of like-minded people that kind of support you in what you're doing, and you just get wrapped up in it. And so I did that, but I did it with the karate world. I was a karate player at the time, and I got my kicks from that. So thank the Lord, I kind of went that way, and that was a massive turning point in my life for many reasons,
And Lee, did you serve in the military?
Yeah, I was in the military for 10 years. I had a great time in the military, did some fantastic work, different jobs. So I joined in 1985 as a military policeman. And I'd just come back from South Africa. I was living over there. And I just bumped into a school friend in a pub And he was telling me about all the things that the military police do. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that world really. And I thought that's quite a diverse things you could do. And I thought, you know what, I really fancy that. So I I went to a place called Sutton Coldfield where you used to go there for 3 days kind of assessments. And then I was an engineer at the time. I served my time as a boilermaker, sheet metal worker in the local factory. And the army wanted me to join the engineers, obviously, because I was there. I was a tradesman. And I really fought like mad to go in the military police. And I remember this major who was talking to me, he was getting quite angry really, because I wouldn't go in the engineers. And he said, right, if you go with that lot, I'm going to tell you now, you'll have no friends, life will be hell. And I said, I'm doing it. So I joined the military police and did my basic training in Chichester. And then I had some great postings all over the world and worked in some really interesting jobs, I thoroughly enjoyed my time.
Any hairy moments?
Yeah, there was a few hairy moments in Northern Ireland, and at that time when I was there, 89, 90, 91 time, it was quite busy, and the troubles as we like to call it were still going on. I think people there on both sides of this trouble would probably argue it was a war. It certainly felt like that. But I think at that time, you could have had a war on British soil, and that was never going to happen. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for everything. So a lot of the stuff that went on then on the mainland as well as over in Northern Ireland weren't reported, and I understand why. I get that, but it was a very, very dangerous place to serve, and.
Tell us a story of a situation you got in.
So there was quite a few, Sean, but one really, which was quite frightening, was I was working in this one particular role, and I was always in civvies, so I had my hair slightly longer to blend in, and we had all the civilian vehicles and all that kind of stuff, and. Special branch. I was on like a 24-hour duty, so somebody had to man the phone at the time, all the time, or your bleeper that he had. Yeah. And it was a special branch policeman from London. I presume he was from London. He calls and he gets put in touch with me. And the special branch at that time, still now, it's slightly changed, but they used to deal with all the terror types things that were going on. And he said, "Look, Lee, there's a soldier down in South Armagh, and he's at this female's house, and they're getting an IRA unit to go and kill him. Could you possibly get him out?" And I thought, right, okay, here we go. So I called one of the lads, and we jumped in our car and got all our weapons and stuff, and off we shot. It must have been maybe about, I don't know, 9:30 in the evening. And I remember it was cold, and there was a bit of sleet blowing and all the rest of it. So we got down to the local RUC station and told them what, the address, what had happened. And this guy, what he'd done is he'd been working there with the infantry unit prior to this. And he'd been on Chat Up, where you would talk to people coming past you, whether it's whether the road was blocked or whatever, and you had a position called Chat Up, and you would talk to people. So he'd been approached on Chat Up by this beautiful young girl who'd chatted him up, and it's called the honey trap. So when he went back to Germany with his unit, they were still in conversation, and she persuaded him to come over. And obviously, she was going to marry him. Everything was going to be good, and it was going to be, everything's going to be great. Young men with their testosterone, eh? So off he went, and so he's in the house, but he's got a plaster on his leg. He's broke his leg, so he's got a full length cast on. He was from a Scottish regiment. He's in this house. I didn't know that until later on. But so we got in the RUC station and said, "Look, we've got to get this guy out." And the RUC guys who were there, they said, "There's no way we're going into that place. He said the local infantry battalion were in there last night. There was shootings, there was bombings, and the whole place is lit up. There is no way we're going in without the military. So they get on the blower to the local colonel. He says, "There's no way I'm taking my guys in there. You're going to die. You're not going to go in." So we were sat there thinking, God, and the time's ticking on, and I'm getting calls from this policeman saying, "You've got to be quick," and he's almost counting down to the minute, and all of a sudden, it might have been about midnight, something like that. There's a shift change in the RUC station. So the new commander comes on with his guys, and the old commander goes. So we start getting the feeling from the people we're talking to that the new commander's a bit gung-ho, and he loves this kind of stuff, right? So this commander comes in, and he's briefed all his men. And he comes and said, "Gentlemen, what can we do for you?" So I tell him the story. He says, "Great, we're going." I'm like, "No." I said, "But the military won't go." He said, "No, we don't need them." I'm like, shit. You never went anywhere without the military. I'd done similar things like this in West Belfast, and we might have had, I don't know, a big military presence. You might have had 200 people on the ground. So I thought, right, here we go. So we all get into these armoured vehicles. I think it was about 4. Now, the thing is that the IRA are going to get there around about the same time we are, and everybody knows it. So we're in the cars, everyone's shouting and just really getting everybody going. And we got to this place, and everybody kind of deploys to kind of cordon it off. And it's dark, and it's really cold, and a bit of snow's flying. And we just kick the doors in and just burst into the house, clearing the rooms and everything. And I find this guy in a sleeping bag on the floor of the lounge. And anyway, we grab him, realise he's just in his boxers, realise he's now got a plaster on, and drag him back out to the car, get him in the car, and we're off. And this takes probably, I'd like to say it took about 10 hours, but it was probably about 4 minutes. And you're in the back of your mind thinking, if these guys come here, we've got a lot of trouble coming our way. So that was, the adrenaline was going, and you got back, and it was just incredible experience. Yeah, and you didn't have time to think about it, So that was up there on the scary experience time,